So the second type of person whose dua is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is da'watul musafir. The person who is a musafir, the person who is a traveler. And the third type of person whose dua is accepted is da'watul walidain ala waladihi. The dua that is made, the dua of a parent for their children. So the parents make a dua and for their children, for their daughter, for their son, for their children, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepts his dua. So number one is da'watul mazlum, somebody who's been oppressed. Number two, da'watul musafir, somebody who's on a journey, somebody who's on a safar. Yes, we're all on a journey, but someone who's actually traveled more than 54 miles, he's on a journey, he's out of town, he's not in his hometown, he's a musafir. All the rules of musafir and qasr, they all apply to him. This person's a musafir, okay? For him, his dua is accepted. And the third one, when a parent makes dua for a child, this dua is also accepted. The hadith reports the saying of the Prophet ﷺ about those whose prayers are granted in relation to their peculiar circumstances. The first one whose prayers are answered is the one who is wronged. He is oppressed in some way by a great tyrant or an oppressor. The oppressed is among those whose supplication is granted. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ittaqi da'watul mazlum." Save yourself or fear the dua of the person who is oppressed. فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَ اللَّهِ حِجَابٌ. Because the dua of the person who is oppressed, who has been wronged, okay, people have wronged him, he is oppressed, there is no barrier, there is no hijab, there is no veil between his dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah, there is no veil whatsoever. Who is oppressed? Anyone who is wronged. Anyone whose haqq has been taken away from him or her. Anyone who has been dealt with injustice. It doesn't matter what circumstance, you can put any situation, you can put any circumstance to it. If they have been wronged in any way, shape or form, if they have been oppressed in any way, shape or form, if they have been deceived, if they have been cheated upon, if they have been deceived, if they have been any of this type, they are Muslim. Okay, they are oppressed. If they were to make dua against you because they know you've wronged them, their dua is accepted. Their dua is accepted. And there have been these type of things have happened. Okay, in life there are narrations, there are stories mentioned where people have been wronged, people have been abused, people have been treated unjustly, and they make dua, they pray to Allah. And sometimes they don't even have to make dua. Sometimes they don't have to make dua. Sometimes whatever is in their heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alimun bidati sudur. He knows what is in the heart. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, based on the grief that a person is going through, He accepts the dua what is in their heart. So they haven't even uttered the dua yet. So it's very important that we don't wrong anyone, we don't oppress anyone, we don't cheat on anyone, we don't treat anyone unfairly, we treat everybody fairly and treat them with insaf, treat them with adab, treat them justly. This also includes family members as well. It's very general, the hadith is. So that's the first one. The second one is da'watul musafir, the person who is on a journey, the person who is traveling. He is in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This person, should utilize his time to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because his dua is accepted. When you go on a journey, for anybody who travels more than 54 miles from their hometown, the moment they leave their hometown, the moment they leave the suburbs of whatever town or city they live in, they are now classed as a musafir. They are now classed as someone who is on a journey. So for example, we all live in Walsall. If we intend to travel somewhere more than 54 miles, so we all intend to travel to London. Okay, so we all intend to travel to London now, we are all musafir. Okay, so the moment we leave Walsall, that's when we are classed as a musafir. So even if we stop over in Birmingham, some of us probably work in Birmingham, you do qasr salat. Why? Because you are now in the state of safar. Even though on a normal day-to-day circumstance, if you were to go there, you won't do qasr there. Why? Because you're not a musafir. You haven't intended to travel somewhere more than 54 miles. So that's a ruling in itself. And then the third person the hadith mentions, the Prophet ﷺ, he then mentioned the supplication of the parents. Their prayers for their children gain speedy response. Children should ought to serve parents and cause them to pray for them. Subhanallah. Children should ought to serve parents and cause them to pray for them. And I know many of us, we all do this when we say, pray, when we ask our parents to pray for us. Ask your mother and father, pray for me, make dua for me, remember me in your du'as, make dua for me when you pray our salah. Especially our parents, when they get to like middle age, old age, this is the norm. I'm not saying this isn't the case when they're young, but they tend to pray more often then. They tend to, their commitments are also less. They don't need to work as much. They don't have much commitment. So mashallah, our parents normally, they spend most of their time in ibadah, they spend most of the time in worship. So you should get them to pray for you. And the most lethal and potent of du'as, you probably noticed, and you probably experienced, and you probably heard many incidents and stories of this, are the dua of the parents, the mother's dua, the father's dua. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, one of the reasons why he was so successful, because of the dua of his mother, because of the dua, the constant dua of his mother. And she made dua for him so much when he lost his eyesight, when he was so young, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her the glad tidings of seeing Khalilullah, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in the dream. And then we all know who Imam Bukhari went on to become the author of this book. So just as their supplication for their children is granted, so too their supplication against them is granted, which comes from a pained heart, though normally parents are very compassionate to pray against their children. Their supplication is powerful enough to correct their children's life in this world and the next. It's very important that we understand one thing, and this can sometimes be a norm in our community, and I can't speak for other communities, where our child has done something and we dash out curses, like, you're never going to get a job. The angels could say Ameen to this. You're never going to be successful. You never listen to me. You didn't marry this girl. You're never going to get married. These kind of things are normally said sometimes. These are very dangerous statements. Very, very dangerous statements. We should be careful as parents what we say with our tongues. We should be very, very careful. Because like the hadith mentions, the dua of a parent for a child is accepted. Whether this dua is a positive dua or whether this dua is a negative dua. So this is one lesson we learn. That be careful with what you say to your child. Like I mentioned last week, a husband has to be very careful with the tongue. The tongue is such a thing. It can be sharper than a knife. And a loose tongue is the most dangerous thing. The most dangerous thing in life is a loose tongue. It can destroy families. It can destroy people completely, mentally, physically. It can send a person to their grave, a loose tongue. And how many families and communities and societies have been destroyed all because of the tongue? The husband can't control himself. He says divorce 3 times, khalas, it's finished. Why? Because she forgot to warm the food in the microwave, or the food was a bit salty, or she was, these minute little things, people are giving divorce, people are giving talaq, because they didn't put the top on the toothbrush and they left it open. These are real stories, incidents which have taken place. One which I heard recently from a very reliable source who deals with divorces and talaq was because the husband or the wife never used to put the top on for the toothpaste. All these minute things, talaq and divorce wanted to happen. Remember one thing, Inna awwad al-halali indallahi at-talaq, mentioning this, that divorce is something permissible, is halal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not as the Sharia, not as Islam, not as Deen, Nor does the Prophet ﷺ ever encourage for a person to be in a toxic marriage or toxic relationship. There are solutions to this. Okay? You don't have to live with this for the rest of your life and live in stress and depression. Right? But talaq and divorce is something which is the actual last resort. It's the final straw. It's when you've tried everything else. It's when you've tried conversing. It's when you've tried compromising. It's when you should be compromising anyway. It's when you've tried counseling. It's when you've tried going to your imam. It's when you've tried every single means you are capable of doing. Only then do you then resort to talaq. Talaq should never ever be resorted in the first instance. And even when talaq is given, when divorce is given, never should you give 3 divorces in one go. Or 3 divorces. Because once you give 3 divorces, my dear respected brothers and sisters listening at home, that after 3 divorces, there is no way back. Unless you do another procedure. This is a very long procedure which people don't normally go through. And I think you all know what I'm referring to. But these are real cases and real things happening where people can't control their tongue and they give a divorce, they give a talaq, and then after they come to their senses and they realize what's happened and they realize what they've done, then they go to Maulana Sahib, Mufti Sahib, give us a fatwa. It's too late, you can't handle fatwa now. You are angry, talaq is done. Talaq in anger is done. Talaq, when you give a talaq, when you give a divorce because you are angry, it's done. Talaq has to be given. For talaq to be occurred also, it has to be given in the past tense or the present tense. Okay, this is for divorce to take place. So we need to control our tongues. And as parents, like I mentioned, we need to make sure we are giving the correct dua. Remember, no matter how the condition of your child is, your dua will one day or another, will come true, Insh'Allah. Your dua for your child will always come true. So continuously make dua for their guidance. Continuously make dua for their. There was one mother, and somebody asked her, her children were, mashallah, since childhood and through teens, they were praying constantly, and they were praying, regularly, and they were role models as children, as teenagers. So somebody asked the mother, how is this? She said, way before they were even born or even thought about having children, I used to always make this dua. رَبِّ اجْعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي رَبَّنَا وَتَقَبَّلْ dua. What does this dua mean? It's in the Quran. What does this dua mean? رَبِّ اجْعَلْني, oh Allah, make me مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ, someone who establishes and prays salah. Someone who is punctual in salah. وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي, and my offspring, and my children. Make them also punctual in salah. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ dua, oh Allah, accept this dua. She says, I used to constantly make this dua. Constantly make this dua. How many times do we make this dua? Even before we've had children, we should be making this dua. Make these duas now. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. Oh Allah, make our spouses and our children the coolness of our eyes. The coolness of our eyes. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this. A mu'min, a believer's dua, I've mentioned this 100 times before, a mu'min, a believer's dua is never ever rejected. When a Muslim makes dua, his dua is never ever rejected. Yes, like Mufti Sahib mentioned in the Jummah talk a couple of weeks ago, there's a person who has all the qualities in him, right, for his dua to be accepted. His hair is disheveled, he's on a safar, he's on a journey, he's been through difficulty, but he raises his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, and he says to Allah, oh Allah, give me this, give me that. And then the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, how can Allah give him when his clothes is haram, when his money is haram, when his earnings haram? Yes, this is one condition for dua to be accepted. One condition for dua to be accepted is that your kamai and your kasb and your earnings, they have to be halal. They have to be of halal means. Haram money, haram means no barakah. There's never any barakah in your life. There's never any barakah in your wealth, in your health, in anything that you do. So as parents, we need to stop. The last thing a parent wants is to see his child go off the rails. it doesn't matter if it's 30, 40, they don't want to see their child in difficulty. But sometimes, because of some things we say, this can happen. This can happen. Angels are with us all the time. At one given time, there are 5 angels with every believer. There are 5, this is the Quran. Mentioned, لَهُ مُعَقِّبَاتٌ مِنْ بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِ يَحْفَظُونَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down angels to protect you. This is in the Quran al-Kareem. Just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given everyone a shaitan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given everyone a shaitan. He mentioned in the Quran as well, in the Hadith. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, do you have one as well, O Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah? The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, I have one, but I've got him under control. I've got him under control. He's locked down. You can also get yours under control. How? By fighting your nafs, by continuously doing good things. So it's very important as parents, we give du'as, we dish out our du'as to our children in front of their faces. It's very important to make du'a for your child in front of their faces, not just behind their back. Yes, du'a behind their back is a very noble thing, but du'a in front of their faces, where they can hear it, has a mental effect on them, has a psychological effect on them. They will see this. Your children behave how they see their parents behave. Children who are in a healthy, who are healthy mentally, who are healthy physically, most likely the reason being is because at home the environment is healthy. There's no toxic environment. There's no environment where mom is shouting at dad, dad is shouting at mom, plates are being thrown all over the place, the doors are being smacked and banged. If a child is being someone who has taught children, who teaches children, who teaches in secondary school, who be around teenagers, you see this very often. When there's problems at home, there's problem in the child's behavior. When at home, alhamdulillah, mashallah, there's an environment of peace, there's an environment of understanding, there's an environment of mutual respect, then you will see that the child's behavior will also be according. So it's very important that we speak to our child, give them du'as, may Allah reward you, Jazakallah khair, thank you, may Allah make you punctual in salah, may Allah make you, this, that, next, salih, all these kind of things. These are things which we need to make a adat and a habit of doing. The Arabs do this all the time. Every year, Hayakallah, may Allah give you long life. Barakallah feek, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do barakah. They boil you a plate, or they put the food in, Barakallah feek, Hayakallah. What do we say? Like, yeah, thanks. Okay, cheers mate. Well, we say these kind of things as well. But giving du'as from a young age, they will, number one, 2 things will happen. Number one, they will be accustomed to this. And number 2, they will also start speaking in this manner. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to do this, inshaAllah. The last hadith which I'm going to recite is the following. Abu Usayd radiallahu ta'ala who said while speaking to his people, we were present in the company of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and someone asked him, O Messenger of Allah, will anything remain by which I may show kind treatment to my parents now that they are dead? Meaning, is there anything I can do to my parents? Is there anything I can do for my parents now that they are not living? They're not alive anymore. What can I do to be kind to them? What can I do to benefit them? Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi has brought this hadith. So my parents are not alive anymore. How can I be kind to them still? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he affirmed that there were 4 things that he could do. Number 1 is, he said, ad-du'a lahuma, make dua for them. Make dua for your parents. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابُ. Oh Allah, forgive me and my parents. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. 15th juz. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh my Lord, have mercy on both of my parents, just like they had mercy on me when I was small. These are 2 du'as mentioned in the Quran with regards to parents. The truth is, The best of all du'as are the du'as which are mentioned in the Quran. Why? Quran is kalamullah. Quran is the speech of Allah. So Allah is teaching us what to say, number one. Number two is from the hadith. Anything that the Prophet ﷺ taught us to say, we try and learn those hadiths. And if you don't know any of these two, then no problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of languages. He understands every single language. You open yourself up to Allah and make dua to Allah. That, oh Allah, forgive my parents. Oh Allah, illuminate their grave. Oh Allah, make it easy for them. Protect them from punishment. Protect them from the fire of hell. Protect them from the adab of the qabr. Protect them from any sort of punishment. Oh Allah, give my parents Jannatul Firdaus. Oh Allah, on the day of judgment, make it easy for them and grant them Jannatul Firdaus without any reckoning. These are just examples of du'as you can make for them. You can describe and make any dua you want for your parents. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept. So the first thing is a dua lahuma, make dua for them. وَالْإِسْتِغْفَارُ لَهُمَا. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, seek forgiveness for them. Ask Allah to forgive them. So ask Allah, oh Allah, please forgive my father. Please forgive my mother. Please forgive. And continue to do this all throughout your life until it's time for you to go. The hadith mentioned that on the day of judgment, a man will come, a person will come, and it will be his turn to be reckoned. It's his turn, it's his judgment time. So he comes forward and he will notice that he will see a great amount of good deeds and rewards for him. And he will ask Allah, oh Allah, where is this from? I can't remember doing any of these deeds. Where are all these deeds come from? Where are all these good deeds come from? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to him, all this reward is because your child in the dunya, he used to make dua for you and he used to seek istighfar for you. He used to ask Allah for forgiveness for you. So this is very important. Number 3, fulfill the pledge after them which they had contemplated to honor. So if you know that your parents wanted to do something before they left the world, they wanted to build a masjid, they wanted to feed the poor, or they wanted to help an orphanage, they wanted to do something noble, then you should try and carry this act out to as much as you can. And then number 4, the Prophet ﷺ said, respect those who love them and were attached to them. Respect those who love them and were attached to them, meaning your father or your mother's friends. Respect them who are attached to them. Keep good relationships with them, and keep those ties intact which originate from them, meaning their family members. Keep in touch with them. So 2 things here. If your parents had friends, and if your parents had people who were close to them, then do this. Then keep good ties with them. Go and see them every now and then if you don't see them regularly. Go and meet them, ask them how they were. This is also how to benefit the deceased, and also their family members. They are your family members as well. Go and check on them. Go and keep good relationships with them. There's one particular incident with regards to the last point which I just mentioned, and that was when the Prophet ﷺ, he was so careful with regards to this that at times he would send whole limbs of an animal. Sometimes we send meat. We tend to do this. Us people, we tend to only do this at Eid al-Adha. We send bags of meat to people's houses. So the Prophet ﷺ, he would send whole limbs of the animal that he would sacrifice on occasions to the friends of his first wife, Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu ta'ala. Although many years had passed since she had died. It's in Bukhari and Muslim. So the Prophet ﷺ, he would remember the friends of Khadija and say why Khadija radiallahu ta'ala had been very considerate and compassionate to the Prophet ﷺ. Hence he too remembered her, and in her absence he treated her friends very kindly. And this is a great example to love and faithfulness even after her death. So the Prophet ﷺ himself did this. So we should also do this as well. If our fathers, if our parents, that left this world, these are ways of how we can benefit them. And one of the most, in another hadith it's mentioned, the best way, other than these 4, to benefit the dead, the deceased, your parents, the hadith mentions that when a person dies, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنِ عَادَمْ, when a human being dies, إِنْ قَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ, all his good actions come to an end, except for three things. Number one, sadaqatun jariyah. He left behind some sadaqah. You left behind some sadaqah. You built a masjid. You helped in building a masjid. You orphanage. You did any good act of sadaqah. You built a water well, okay, for people to benefit. Or as long as that masjid remains, even if it's 1,000 years after your death, as long as that water tank remains and people drink water from there, even if it's 1,000 years after you have gone, you will still receive the reward for this. And even if it's there until the day of judgment, you will receive the reward for this. Number one. The second thing that the Prophet ﷺ mentions is waladun salih. He leaves behind pious children. He leaves behind pious children. Every single thing that a child, that technically, it doesn't matter how old you are, you'll always be your parents' child. Every single thing that a son or daughter does, which is of good, whether it be salah, whether it be sawm, whether it be zakah, whether it be hajj, whether it be umrah, whether it be being kind and respectful and having the best of manners and speaking kindly, any good act you can think of, a son or daughter does that, the parent automatically receives reward. Automatically. This should be the number one motivation for you to become a better practicing Muslim. Do you not want to see your mother and father who are no longer living, who you love so much? Do you not want to see them in a good place? Do you not want to see them strolling in the gardens of Jannah, in the gardens of paradise? By your actions, this is possible. By your actions, by you being punctual in salah, by you being punctual in your zakah, in your fasting in the month of Ramadan, by you being good in conduct with every single person, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, this is achievable and this is possible. And then the last thing that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, and it's got to do with ilmun yuntafa'u bih, the knowledge from which he has benefited other people. And this is exactly the same. It continues. You taught someone Bismillah. You taught someone Surah Al-Fatiha. You taught someone, imagine how much reward the teachers who teach Qaida are getting. Not Quran, Qaida. Because to learn Quran, you need to know the Qaida first. They are getting the most reward. Think about it. They are getting the most reward out of everyone. And I'll tell you how. So the person who teaches someone Qaida, Alif Bata, and then lesson 4, Fatha Zabar, lesson 5, Kasra Zair, lesson 6, Dhamma Pesh, they are teaching the person what? How to recite the Quran. This person is going to recite the Quran, he is now going to get reward. Right? Let's just say this person becomes a Hafiz. Yes? He becomes a Hafiz. He leads Taraweeh for the next 40-50 years of his life. Every time he stands in prayer and salah, whether it's Taraweeh or any time he opens the Book of Allah, or he doesn't even open the Book of Allah, he recites the Quran, he will receive reward. And imagine that Hafiz became a teacher and he became a Hifz class teacher. He started teaching students for the next 50-60 years of his life. Imagine how much reward there is there. So imagine this number one Hafiz, he went on to do Alim class and he became Alim, and in the last year he started reading the books of Hadith. Started reading Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, all these Muwatta, Imam Malik. He starts reading all these Hadith books. How much reward is there? All for the Qaida person. Then this Alim starts giving talks and he starts giving lectures and he starts benefiting people who are sitting here, who are sitting around. All the reward goes back to that very first teacher. The person who taught him Qaida, he's getting thousands and millions and millions and millions of reward. Don't ever underestimate your Qaida teacher. The person who taught you Qaida. He might be some normal person. He might look like a normal person, but wallahi, he's not a normal person. He's a very special person, because if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be able to recite the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So knowledge which is transmitted. You taught someone. This is very important. As parents, for the child, the number one ustad for a child should be the mother and the father. Number one start. Before they go to Maktab, before they go to Madrasa, before they go to any of these Islamic institutions, the number one ustad should be the parents. You teach your child Bismillah. You teach your child Surah Fatiha. You start teaching your child Qaida and Quran. And Insh'Allah, every time they will teach you, will get to do it. So these are the three things which the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to be good children to our parents. May Allah make us the coolness of our parents' eyes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our children the coolness of our eyes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to serve our parents if they are still alive. And if our parents are not alive, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illuminate their graves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive them completely, have mercy on them, and grant them Jannatul Firdaus.